Today in Oregon, right-wing groups stormed the Capitol building demanding accountability from their politicians due to the damage wrought by the coronavirus lockdowns and complaining about how many Democrat politicians are flouting the rules that the small businesses must follow, but the rules that the elites ignore. I think it's only going to get worse from here, both in terms of the severity of the lockdowns and the protests against them. This protest today isn't the first one we've seen from conservatives, Trump supporters, or right-wing groups. I mean, they've been protesting a lot this year, but they are sort of getting angrier. And today I saw something truly, truly shocking, fascinating. In the protest crowd in Oregon, there's someone waving a thin blue line flag, typically that shows support for the police. Meanwhile, people here were yelling at the cops, "You're breaking your oath to the Constitution." And the police responded by pepper spraying these conservative individuals. Blue lives matter, huh? These police officers are oath breakers. Police typically swear an oath to uphold the Constitution. Right now, they're not doing that. These people had every right to go into a public building and express their concerns. And the cops don't care. But my friends, if you think it ends here, you would be wrong. Right now, the UK is basically in total shutdown, one of the most severe lockdowns we've seen anywhere in the world, except maybe China, probably a few other countries, but it's bad. China literally welded the doors shut of people with COVID, so I don't know if you can get worse than that. I suppose you theoretically could, but let's not go there. The UK is now seeing a massive travel ban. About 40 countries are restricting access. They're banning arrivals from people in the UK. Why? A new COVID strain, a mutation that some people fear will be able to bypass the vaccine, essentially. You see, the vaccine works by telling your body to destroy spike proteins, which the COVID virus is covered in. But if the mutation affects the spike proteins, the current vaccine might not work at all, in which case you will get many people saying we must have a lockdown, and it's going to be worse than anyone realized. You know, going back several months, going back even a few weeks, when Joe Biden brings on Dr. Osterholm, who says 6-week nationwide lockdown. When we hear from Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci saying lockdown until 2022 in some fashion, that's based on the current coronavirus. Now that they're saying an even more infectious strain, which may bypass the vaccine, is emerging and may be the dominant strain, the vaccine won't work. Well, if that's true, and that's what people are worried about, it may not be true, then they're going to lock us down and it's never going to stop. When you give them the power to do it, they'll never let it go. Who would give up power in an emergency? Rarely does anyone ever give it up. But we are seeing right-wing individuals rise up in protest. I have to wonder where Antifa is, because certainly the government mandating these lockdowns, telling you can't go out, but then we watch on TV on Saturday Night Live. We watch these people hug and laugh. We watch Dr. Birx herself caught posting photos. She's with her family and they're hugging 3 generations of her family in direct violation of their own coronavirus restrictions. These people don't fear it. They don't care. The rules don't apply to them. The rules only apply to you. And because of this, I think we're going to start seeing more right-wing groups protest and rise up and say no. Now, my prediction was that when Joe Biden becomes president, assuming he does, for all intents and purposes, you're going to see right-wing groups essentially set up areas where they're like, restriction-free zone, no lockdown zone. And we've already seen it in Washington, not too far from Oregon, where one small town basically said, we're not complying with this. Right-wing groups showed up, businesses remained open, and they ignored the lockdown edict. There's one reason why these small towns were able to do it. No oath breakers. Now, oath breakers, I refer to police who violate their oath of the Constitution as oath breakers. In these small towns, the cops are like, I'm not going to enforce this. In bigger cities and in capitals, you have a police force ready, willing, and able to violate the Constitution of this country. That is, I say this more colloquially, treasonous. Not legally. In the legal definition, treason is like aiding an enemy in a time of war. No, I mean they are violating what this country stands for. And they don't care because they want money. They're akin to scabs breaking the union line because they want money. but it's going to get worse. They're fearing now food shortages in the UK. So let's do this. Let's read the story about what's going on with this armed anti-lockdown protest storming the Oregon State Capitol building and why things might get a whole lot worse with this new coronavirus strain. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. There are many ways you can give, but the best thing you can do, share this video, subscribe, hit that like button. All of these things help grow my channel, help me do the work that I do, and sharing this just allows people to get a perspective they might not normally get from the mainstream media, and is probably the best way you can actually help. But again, smash that like button, subscribe, notification bell. Let's just read the news. The Daily Mail reports about 300 anti-lockdown protesters, some of them armed, gathered outside the Oregon State Capitol building and forced their way in on Monday as lawmakers convened for a special session. Governor Kate Brown called for the special session closed to the public, where lawmakers discussed pandemic relief and vaccination distribution funding as protesters gathered to oppose COVID-19 restrictions. The Reopen Oregon rally started around 9 a.m., comprised of members of the Proud Boys, Patriot Prayer, and other far-right groups, some seen carrying rifles and pistols and waving American flags and Trump banners. They were heard chanting, "We just want our rights back," and USA. Whoa. I got to stop you right there and say something very, very important. When were your rights taken from you? You want them back? Please tell me in history when people peacefully requested their rights and were given them. There are some instances, no joke, no, there are some instances where after a certain amount of time, for a variety of reasons, certain tensions fall apart, and then people said, we're asserting a right, and they went, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. But not typically in situations like this. I'm sorry. This is why the founding fathers gave us the Constitution. Well, not just the founding fathers. The Constitution actually came sometime after the Articles of Confederation, but you get the point. The First Amendment, the Anti-Federalists, they did a good job getting us this Bill of Rights, the right to peaceably assemble and for a redress of grievances. Legit. They're going to say about 100 demonstrators forced their way into the building from two entrances, and once inside, they shouted obscenities and yelled, "Let them eat cake," as dozens of armed state troopers blocked a door into a hallway. Shortly before 9:30 a.m., police declared unlawful assembly and said protesters would be arrested on disorderly conduct and trespassing charges if they did not disperse. We can see in this photo Trump flags, as a pitchfork there. I love it, as a pitchfork. Some people holding up signs. These look like they're older folks for the most part, typically conservative. You can see in the back here, someone's actually got a thin blue line flag. And that just breaks my heart. It does. Think about how depraved you'd have to be a law enforcement officer violating your oath of the Constitution while people outside were waving that flag in support of you and the risks you take. Truly, truly depraved. These cops are looking at that and smiling. It's disgusting. That flag being waved is not for these men. The officers in Oregon who are doing this are the Praetorian Guard for the establishment elites who don't think you deserve rights. Well, this country is something different from many other countries in the world. The government is constrained by our Constitution only if people are willing to defend it. Unfortunately, these officers were more than willing to trample all over it and laugh as they did it, and even laugh at those who would dare support them. I'll also point out something very interesting is the man holding an upside down American flag. For those that aren't familiar, and I could be wrong about this, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, the upside down flag is a symbol of country in distress, not of disrespect. And so these people, this man waving the flag is basically saying the United States is in some kind of distress. If only we had young, brave men and women, got to be PC, willing to uphold their oath of the Constitution and stand up for individual liberties, rights, and what this country was founded on. We don't. I mean, we do. But the people who are getting these jobs in government, the police, and sometimes even the military, they don't. It's a paycheck. That's all it is. And they don't care about you. They want their job. You know, I think it's really funny when you see the left yelling at the cops to like rip your badge off, throw it down. I've seen so many protests from the left where they say things like, you know, lay down your batons and join us and whose side are you on? And I'm like, bro, the police are not, you know, leftists. They're not progressives for the most part. They're not going to join you and chant because they don't agree with you. Now, this is something else. Cops more likely, in my opinion, to agree with those who wave a flag supporting them, right? The cops can't even do it here. The cops can't even say, we support you too, your rights. No, the cops say, we don't care. We just don't. The Constitution is toilet paper to these people. Now, apparently there's been a mass exodus of many police. I've been reporting on it for quite some time. So all of the good cops who refuse to violate the constitutional rights, well, they quit. That's right. Many of them quit. Many of them feeling abused. Many of them feeling like these rules and these laws or these edicts, are unenforceable because they violate the Constitution. And then those jobs are easily filled by oath breakers. I wouldn't be surprised if these new cops were brought in without being told to swear an oath to the Constitution. So we can see in many of these photos, police coming out with batons and at one point sprayed everybody down with pepper spray. Video from outside the building shows protesters demanding entry, shouting, "We have a right to be here," and arrest Kate Brown in fury with her handling of the pandemic. One woman was seen trying to climb a window on the west side of the Capitol building, but was brought down by state troopers, according to the Daily Beast. Freelance writer Laura Jadid said cops deployed a great deal of mace at the crowd. The Salem Police Department retweeted that a group of protesters had gathered outside the building and urged the public to avoid the area. Streets in the vicinity were closed down. Once the protesters got inside, they were contained within the atrium, and where they shouted at a group of troopers, blocking them from progressing further into the building. Video shows demonstrators voicing their anger with the coronavirus lockdowns, one person yelling, "You're having birthday parties while you shut us down." By 10:30 a.m., protesters were pushed out of the inside of the building and ordered to remain in the street after police declared they were unlawfully assembling. Unlawfully assembling. Why? It's peaceful. There's no rioting. There's no damage. There are people showing up to a Capitol building. Very, very different. You know what's really fascinating about all of this? Well, I was watching some of the videos, and you know what I heard? I heard support for Antifa. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. Now, let's calm everybody down here. I didn't hear people saying, Antifa was right, we stand with them, yay. Though some people made the claim, I've heard some people claim, some people were saying that they did stand with Antifa in this regard. What I heard was people basically saying, when Antifa comes out and protests and the cops shut them down, that's wrong. If they want to come out and protest, they have a right to do so. It's the First Amendment. That's not an unlawful assembly. When Antifa throws bricks and starts fires, that's unlawful. That I understand. But now we're dealing with something truly insidious and dangerous. It's not just about what the government is doing. It's about how the government is responding to one of the belligerent factions of the culture war. Belligerent isn't an insult, by the way. I'm talking about those that are engaging in conflict. There's three different distinct factions. And within them, subgroups for sure. The establishment crony elites, which includes Republicans and Democrats for the most part. And then you have the populist right and the populist left. The populist left does include, to an extent, some Antifa. For the most part, they just accept it, even though many Antifa are like tankies, authoritarian leftists who are typically insulted by many of the progressives. But what you have here is the right, the populist right. They used to support the police, a faction of the establishment. If the police come out and start beating these people down and pepper spraying them, they're going to lose a lot of support. And without that support, there will be no one to defend them when the left starts saying defund the police. In fact, you're going to get way more conservatives being like, do it. I don't care. These people are breaking the law. They're criminals. No, I'm not kidding. Many people on the right defend the idea of police, the system of policing. And I think that's the important breakdown. I've long criticized defund the police and abolish the police because the general idea is, listen, there are bad cops. We need reform. 100% we need reform. We need bad cops to be either fired, arrested, or fined, depending on the severity of what they did wrong. We need a system by which we can hold bad cops accountable. When I was defending the police, the actions they were taking, it was based upon the riots. When the far left went around smashing up businesses and destroying the lives of the innocent, I said, this is what we need police for, to stop the riots. And we all basically agreed. But now what are the police doing? Enforcing unconstitutional edict. And I'm not being hyperbolic when I say edict. A governor saying, I hereby decree businesses closed. You can't do that. This country is not, we are not a feudalist nation. Maybe a little silly. We're not. You can't just decree yourself the executive authority and tell everyone to shut down, but the cops just say fine. They don't care about what's legal. These police are breaking the law. They're violating the Constitution. They have no legal authority to mace someone. None. They'll claim they do, but that's not the law. The police have no right to do this. And that's true if it's to Antifa or anybody else. So I'll defend the far left, the left, moderates, conservatives, and even the far right if they want to go out and peacefully assemble. I will not defend the police when they attack or detain or arrest or inhibit people who want to do that. But let me move on from here because you get the gist of this. I think we're going to see more right-wing groups rise up. I think that's going to escalate. And I think the left is going to say, we don't care. We don't like the establishment and the government and the cops. The conservatives are going to see these autonomous zones on the left say, I don't care. Those cops are oath breakers. They're going to put more faith in the oath keepers. Oath keepers, for those not familiar, it's a group of people. They've been reported as a militia. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it because some people objected to my description of them as a militia. But they're people, current and former law enforcement and military, who say they will keep their oath to the Constitution. That's a huge dividing line. Take a look at this. More than 40 countries have banned UK arrivals. I mean, this is getting serious. Check this out. Global stocks sell off as new COVID strain unsettles investors. While people are protesting and saying we want accountability, end the shutdowns, this is what you get. You get this photo. Carol Roth tweets, just to be clear, this is essential, but small businesses and their employees throughout NYC are not. That's right. Saturday Night Live don't have to wear masks. They can hug and they can laugh and they can do whatever they want. Well, you're not allowed to see your family. You're not allowed to see your family, but Dr. Birx is allowed to see your family. How about this stuff? Is this what we're supposed to be doing? I'm not trying to be mean to this guy from Microclimate. This is a company. For those that are listening, it's a guy wearing what looks like some kind of space helmet. I'm not trying to be mean to this guy. He seems like a really nice guy, and I respect that he's trying to create an innovative new product. And considering the circumstances we're in, it doesn't seem like an actual bad idea, except for if you sneeze. This guy's wearing some kind of plastic face shield helmet with airflow vents in the neck or whatever, or something like that. So you can walk around and see people's faces. And I'm sorry, it's just patently absurd. While Dr. Birx of the Coronavirus Task Force is violating the lockdowns, they expect us to be buying products like this. Now, my question for this guy is, what happens if you sneeze and you're wearing this plastic shield and now it's splattered all on the inside of your face shield? Yeah, it doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. But this is what's happening to people. The panic, the fear, it's nonsensical. Why are the elites not scared of this? I have to wonder. Why are they having meetings? Why are they not wearing masks? Stacey Abrams, during the electoral vote count, wasn't wearing a mask. Nobody cared. Rules for thee, but not for me. It's only going to get worse. If you think people are going to put on these space helmets to walk around, to be scared and can't go out and can't run their businesses while the elites party and laugh and hug and sing on TV, you are sorely mistaken. Now, maybe people just roll over and do nothing about it. It's possible. Or maybe people push back and we see mass protests. The most effective nonviolent civil disobedience would just be people opening their stores and running their businesses and defying these lockdowns like we saw in Mossy Brook. Take a look at this story. Yahoo News, explainer. Are new coronavirus strains cause for concern? They say reports from Britain and South Africa of new coronavirus strains that seem to spread more easily are causing alarm. But virus experts say it's unclear if that's the case or whether they pose any concern for vaccines or cause more severe disease. Viruses naturally evolve as they move through the population, some more than others. It's one reason we need a fresh flu shot each year. New variants or strains of the virus that causes COVID-19 have been seen almost since it was first detected. On Saturday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson of the UK announced new restrictions because of the new strain. Several European Union countries and Canada were banning or limiting some flights from the UK to try and limit any spread. They say what's concerning about it. Health experts in the UK and US said the strain seems to infect more easily than others, but there is no evidence yet it is more deadly. Patrick Vallance, the British government's chief scientific advisor, said the strain moves fast and is becoming the dominant variant, causing over 60% of the infections in London by December. The strain is also concerning because it has so many mutations, nearly 24, and some are on the spiky protein that the virus uses to attach to and infect cells. The spike is what current vaccines target. Quote, I'm worried about this for sure, but it's too soon to know how important it ultimately will prove to be. said Dr. Ravi Gupta, who studies viruses at the University of Cambridge in England. He and other researchers posted a report of it on a website scientists use to quickly share developments, but the paper has not been formally reviewed or published in a journal. The vaccine one. That's really fascinating to me. You know, there's been about 1 million people, I believe, it's been reported, who have been vaccinated in the U.S., mostly frontline workers and many elderly. And there have been a handful of reports of adverse effects, a handful. I see these stories about anaphylaxis. I take that seriously because I have allergies myself. And there was official guidance from the UK where they said you can't get the vaccine unless there are resuscitation measures readily available. That's serious. They said certain young people under a certain age shouldn't get it. Pregnant women shouldn't get it. They put a bunch of restrictions on this. And I said, okay, take it all very, very seriously. But I had to wonder why it was. There's this video of a guy getting a shot with nothing in the needle. And then I posted and people say I was being anti-vax for bringing it up. I'm like, what do you mean he didn't get the vaccine? That's what I'm complaining about. Why would the media put out these stories to scare people about the vaccine? Well, I think the simple solution, very obviously, is ratings. Scary, woo. And then they get to scream at me and claim I'm the anti-vax one. I'll tell you what I think it is. I think vaccines are, for the most part, safe. I believe there are adverse reactions and effects that occur. That's a fact. I think you should talk to your doctor about what's best for you because we're all different. Your doctor knows better than I would. And there are certain reasons why I think, first of all, I'm at the back of the line, but due to allergies, I don't want to get it. Plus, I think it's fair to say I don't trust big pharmaceutical companies. That's fine. But now I'm looking at the story of this great mutation and how the vaccine might not work. And I have to wonder, is this how they bypass Trump's accomplishment? Trump was behind Operation Warp Speed. Trump is the one who rushed this through and solved the problem. And now they're saying, even if you get the vaccine, you can't go out. You still got to wear a mask. You still got to social distance. Think about it. It's really tough to say things like, you know, don't take the vaccine because, well, the mainstream media are the ones who want people taking the vaccine. But that means they have to admit Trump won. Trump was right. Trump's project worked. So what do? It's dangerous. They scare you. They can't come out and overtly say it. But we did see Kamala Harris, I believe it was Kamala Harris, and Biden and like Cuomo saying, I'm going to wait. I don't trust this. They started it. It was Democrats, the establishment, who were critical of Trump's vaccine program. And that was criticism of Moderna and Pfizer and BioNTech. That's not Trump. Trump nailed it. The problem was solved. For the most part, we're dealing with a crisis. It's not perfect. But this means with the vaccine, we can get back to normal. And then all of a sudden, we see these stories that are like, it's so dangerous. It's so bad. And now they're like, a mutation. A mutation. Oh, it's too bad the vaccine might not work now. Spare me. It seems like no matter what happens, there's not going to be a satisfactory answer to what's going on. And that's why I think the protests are going to get worse and maybe escalate into something else. I'll put it this way. Yes, the virus could have mutated. And yes, maybe now the vaccine, they're worried it could be ineffective or less effective. I don't think it's a conspiracy that viruses mutate. I think they're going to take that and exploit it to the best of their abilities, the same as they did COVID in the first place. They're going to say, see, Trump didn't solve the problem. Oh, no, it was rushed. If only we did a proper vaccine. They're not going to let Trump take this. Now, they're hoping by offering Trump up that, you know, look, you did the vaccine. Congratulations. He'll go away. But he's not. So they're not going to give it to him. So what next? As I've been saying, the right will not tolerate an anti-scientific edict. The World Health Organization has already said lockdowns are a last resort that can be avoided. Can be. Then why are we seeing all of this? As more and more police start to push and prod upon these working class individuals, regular Americans and conservatives, they're going to lose more and more support. Then when the left comes and says defund the police, what do you think the right is going to say? They're going to say, oh, those guys, get them out of there. If they're not upholding the Constitution, then what's the point of having police in the first place? The defense of police specifically is about them upholding the Constitution and protecting the innocent. When rioters come and destroy our businesses and burn things down, if they're the ones burning things down figuratively, destroying small businesses, then conservatives aren't going to support that. And while the idea of policing will be supported, the traditional view of the officer in the neighborhood or the sheriff coming and protecting you and helping you, if that's not what we get, then you're not going to have conservatives supporting the police for much longer. Then we start to see something interesting like we did in Mossy Brook. But what happens when Joe Biden can't do anything about it? Well, maybe peacefully people just go back to work and ignore all of the edict, and the police, overwhelmed, can't do anything about it. Listen, I'll give you a good example. I often wonder, you know what? I'm not going to use a real world example because I'll get demonetized. I'm going to use a cartoon example from Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you're not familiar with the show, there's 4 nations. The people of the Earth Kingdom, many of them, are captured as prisoners of war by the Fire Nation. And there's more of them on this big boat than there are of the Fire Nation soldiers. And the question is, why won't they rise up and fight back and take over? There's more of them. It's because they're not organized. It's because they're suppressed and pushed down. And that's it. What I mean by that example, in the show, they eventually realize they outnumber and overpower, and then they get access to some materials that allow them to fight back, and then they fight back. Imagine what would happen with mass nonviolent civil disobedience, a general strike. That's what the left is calling for. Well, right now, I think a general strike that would be effective would be actually the opposite, a general work, or whatever you want to call it. If everybody just nonviolently protested by opening the doors to their businesses, then what could anyone do to keep the shutdown going? The police would be powerless. That's the point of nonviolent civil disobedience, to challenge the government and demand a redress of grievances, as is our right in the First Amendment. When the police are pushing down and suppressing even conservatives, they're not going to have support for much longer. Then what happens when you have 100 million people demanding a redress of grievances? 74 million people didn't want Joe Biden, and about half of Democrats didn't want him either. Now you're going to see these people saying, I'm not going to mess with you, you don't mess with me, but those people are a problem. The establishment, the government, the police. I'm actually worried about it. I was thinking about this feeling I'm getting, and it's kind of scary when people don't look at the government as legitimate, both left and right. Because I don't know where that brings us, but it's a scary thought. Nothing I would want to happen. I want to go back to hanging out, playing video games, having friends come over, going to the bar, having a pizza, and just working and living a normal life. That's normal as it used to be, but we're not there anymore. So what happens now? I think the right is going to be emboldened. We'll see what happens on January 6th. You know what's going on then? That's the final day for the electoral process by which Trump can try and stage some kind of, attempt at retaking the presidency. Will Trump supporters muster the political willpower and actually show up? I'm hearing some crazy rumors, and I'm hearing from a lot of people who normally I didn't think would do anything are telling me that they're going to be there. And that makes me wonder. But will they actually? Will they have? Look, the left has tremendous political willpower. They'll occupy and they'll sleep in the street for months like they did at Occupy Wall Street. The conservatives, there were libertarians and conservatives down at Occupy Wall Street in the first weekend and never came back. It's political willpower, convenience. The right tends to say, well, we'll fight another day. And the left has a temper tantrum and screams and demands. So they tend to win. The establishment is destroying the economy, not COVID. And when we see the elites go and party, we know they're not really scared of this. We need to protect the vulnerable, but we need to reopen. They're not going to do it. They're going to say it's getting worse, and maybe it is, but this lockdown will never end. January 6th. I wonder. I don't know if the Trump supporters will have the political willpower to do anything. I mean, maybe they show up, maybe they march around and they bullhorn and they yell rabble, rabble, rabble. But will that do anything? Honestly, I've seen more than enough protests in my day in D.C. to know it won't. I mean, remember March for Our Lives or the Women's March? What did that accomplish? Not a whole lot. I'm sorry, it's just true. You have to have strong political will. And right now what we're seeing with the right protesting, it's more than we've seen before. Storming into this building and making demands. But the left is leaps and bounds ahead of what the right is doing. Unfortunately, I think the left is misguided and very wrong in the direction they're trying to go with things. And I think violence is wrong, too. Nonviolent civil disobedience is the appropriate way to bring about change. It is. I'm telling you, a lot of people don't want to believe it, but violent uprising sours public opinion. You need legitimacy, and that's why nonviolent civil disobedience works better. It does. At a certain point, I understand political violence, but we're nowhere near that. And it would be a huge mistake for anybody. We don't need it. Although we're having problems, if everybody just said, I object, then that would be the end of it. That's all we need to happen. Mass communication makes it possible. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tomorrow at 10 a.m. No IRL show tonight. We're getting into Christmas and New Year's, and everybody's off and gone. And, guests are like, I'm with the family. So, but we're going to have some pretty big shows this week. So stick around, and I will see you all tomorrow at youtube.com/TimCastNews at 10 a.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.